See, people have just tuned in now and we're just laughing and they don't know what we're laughing at. But Beck, we'll need to work on your countdown skills.
So we can see Beck in like full screen, like that's the main thing that comes up. I'm wondering if that's the same for everybody or no.
No, they just get to see our faces.
They get to see us.
And whatever's on that screen behind Beck.
So for those of you that have not met us yet, I'm Phoebe. I'm HR Dynamics.
And I'm Deanne.
Yes.
Or D, whichever. Depends on if I'm in trouble or not.
I always wonder when I do an introduction to you with a client, I'm like, do I put Deanne or D? I'm like, does she want the more formal?
Well, because we like to confuse people, we have a Deanne, a Deanna, and a Leanne. So I go with D because it distinguishes between D and Deanna. But just don't do that for my mum.
Oh, she likes to call you Deanne.
There is a name on my birth certificate, and that's what I was.
And that will be used, right? Yes. Good to know.
So Deanne is my name. Hi, Mum.
So look, thank you so much for those that are joining us live for this webinar. I know some of you will be tuning in afterwards. You've asked for a recording to be sent, and we will also be posting this through our podcast channel.
Because we are official podcasters.
We are.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, look, so I'm just going to do a disclaimer. We're just starting out. We're doing HR after dark.
We've got our training wheels on. So
what we're doing is we're taking TV shows and then we're discussing them afterwards through an HR lens. So some really interesting stuff, interactions that do happen on set, on show, and how that would go down in Australia with the IR laws. It's just
in the real world.
In the real world, yeah. So if you haven't seen those, please start listening. But we're getting better at the process, and we will get more regular with them as well. And if you have a show that you absolutely love and you would like to be interviewed by me or Dee in relation to how would HR lens be looking at this show, give me a call or shoot me an email, because we'd love to talk to you, because we want to talk to different people about shows they're working and what they think about the HR involved with that as well.
Yeah.
Anyway,
or we could even interview people about, no identifying marks or anything, like cases that have happened for them.
We could, yes.
Yeah. We could start a whole series here.
Yeah, look at you getting all excited.
I could retire, be like a wealthy podcaster. I could put podcaster influencer on my occupation.
On the fascinating topic of industrial relations.
Hey, it is fascinating. I find it fascinating.
Yeah, it's good. It is good. Look, what we're here today, what did we even call this webinar? I think we called it
Survival 101.
Survival, yeah. Like, don't fall over in a heap.
Yeah.
Quick.
Buckle up.
Duck for cover. Look, we are, all jokes aside, it's an interesting environment out there at the moment.
Yeah, look, I said it to you the other day, from a observation perspective. It's giving me COVID vibes.
100%. Yeah, I agree. So lots of things that are happening, the fuel prices, obviously the world uncertainty, and the actual roll-on effect. Fuel prices is obvious. Every time you fill up.
I drive in this morning, and I was having a little internal dialogue, as I quite often do. It's not a very safe space to be in my internal dialogue with myself. And I drove past the service station today, and I saw the fuel for unleaded was under $1.80.
That's good.
And I got excited.
I know.
I was just like,
it's
like Christmas Eve. Yeah. And then I was thinking about some other conversations that I'd had with other clients and other associations about how there's been fuel levies put on a lot of supplier invoices, etc. And then I started arguing with myself, does the fuel levy now change, and fuel at $1.80 or under $1.80 is almost getting back to what we were before. But then I sort of gone, the first thing I said to myself is, for how long?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I think in relation to people getting nervous about travelling overseas,
travelling in like domestically, but I'm going away this weekend, and I've had some conversations about, have they cancelled our flight? Are we going to be able to get home? Like, is our flight still going? And it's like, this sort of concepts I never really contemplated before.
Which means that people are potentially concerned if they've got family overseas, they've got significant occasions that they're wanting to attend, or they've got family that are unwell and they're a bit nervous about whether or not they'll be able to get to them, fly to them, or drive to them. I was just talking to a friend of mine who was driving me on her fuel, driving me to work this morning. And
it's your fuel saving mechanism, carpooling with someone else.
And she was saying that up the Cape, lots of cancellations, not so much because of the fuel cost, but because people were concerned that if they go up there, they might run out of fuel, which is unlikely to happen because they actually do have some really good reserves up the Cape.
Yeah.
But apparently it's the best time ever to go up the Cape at the moment because there's hardly anybody up there.
Apart from the weather.
Yeah. Weather will settle down. Anyway, so lots of uncertain times at the moment. So we really thought it was timely to have a conversation around how's this impacting us in our workplace, and what should you be thinking about and what should you be doing. So there's sort of 3 areas that we're looking at today. One of those is how you self-managing yourself and through this time. How's it impacting you as a business owner or a manager? How's it impacting your team and your staff as well, and how might that actually present itself if they're going through a bit of a challenge or they're a bit nervous with it? And then the third thing about, well, what if this is actually causing us to have to think about our business model, reduce sales, increase in cost, staffing structure? How do I actually start to navigate? When should I think about it, and what do I do? So what do you want to talk about first, Steve?
Oh, let's start at the top.
Okay, so how are you self-managing this? I think that's really important because I think that you lead from the top. So if you're going around as a business owner or a manager as a nervous Nelly, fear-mongering,
just angry,
that is going to filter down to your team. They're going to run off your vibes.
Yeah,
for want of a better word.
Absolutely. And it doesn't take much. I think I think people are pretty fragile at the moment. There's so many pressures on people, and when I say people, I mean all of people. So just you might be a manager in a senior role, or have some significant accountabilities, or you might be a business owner, but you still have all of the general pressures that apply to people. So when we're talking about cost of living, fuel, uncertainty, you have those applying to your own individual self and your family and your children and whatever else. But then you have this extra layer of having to navigate running a business and being seen as the shining light.
Yeah, I guess. And leadership actually has to step up. Leadership has to shine and step up and be present and be stable at this time. And that can be hard when you're feeling vulnerable, or you are worried about your mortgage rate going up, or the cost of fuel, or your partner's job, or not being able to see your kids who are, overseas at the moment. So I think that, I feel like it sounds a bit twee or a bit cliche, but self-care is really important. And having a really honest look at yourself, like, how am I coping? How am I presenting to the workplace? What am I putting in place to look after myself? And it comes down to, there's some really basic stuff that we can do, making sure that we are getting time off, making sure that we're looking after ourselves by what we're eating, how we're sleeping, the people that we're spending time hanging around. If you're hanging around with a group of people that are really negative and doomsayers, that's going to be contagious. So making sure that you, be it what you're watching on TV or listening to podcasts or people that you're hanging out with, you need to put some really good, positive, nourishing stuff in there, because otherwise you're going to come across, it's going to be really hard for you to be that strong, stable.
It'll be hard for you to maintain your resilience.
Yeah.
To get through this. And at the same time, I see people actually, because the world is such an uncertain place and because there are so many pressures, that they're making choices. And you're talking about self-care and being cautious of the people that you're surrounding yourself with and absorbing their messages, at the same time being mindful of closing yourself off completely and recluding into your own sort of bubble space, because nothing can get me here, is also a a hazard.
So I think you need a safe place to be able to vent.
I'm your safe place.
Yeah, I can just vent to you, can't I?
Yeah.
So that could be someone at work. It could be who's senior that you've got a relationship with that you can, and then you can present positively to the rest of the team.
It could actually be some form of professional.
I was thinking that too. EAP services, counsellor,
life coaches.
Yeah.
There's a whole array of professional support services that are out there, and professional support. I got a couch. People can come in and lay down. It's good.
But if you're worried about your staffing situation and stability of the business moving forward, rather than talking to all the staff in the staff room about it, it probably is better that you ring us up and you can have a vent, and we can also have a constructive decision as to, are you catastrophizing this? At what stage are we at? What are some proactive measures that we can put in place for us?
And being able to have some sort of honest and robust conversations internally where you've got trusted sources, and you can say, look, hey, I can see that you're a little bit on edge today. Do you want to talk about it? So having those people that can actually see your behaviors and see the way in which you're presenting and portraying yourself, and being able to actually reality check that with a trusted source. It does need to be a trusted source so that you can actually have quite vulnerable and raw conversations, but also have somebody actually going, oh, hey, I've noticed that, you seem to be a little bit.
I think you need a long weekend.
Yeah. I think you just maybe you need a long lunch, or maybe you need a round of golf, or maybe, you just need to sit on your couch and watch Netflix. Self-care is very different to every individual, and that's one of the traps I think that managers and leaders can fall into, is projecting what they believe to be self-care. And saying, well, we're going to do all of these wellness initiatives because we want to keep the morale up and we want to do all these things, and that's all great, but you just need to be mindful that every person that you come across is going to have a different need.
Yeah, so for self-care for me at this time would not be taking time off work, because then I'd overthink it and potentially catastrophize it. It's much better for me to be engaged and involved and seeing, look, the phone's still ringing, work still needs to be done, like it's seeing normal life is actually what makes me feel normal, rather than retreating back and spending. But that's for me personally. So you need to work out, I guess, have a gauge for yourself, do a litmus test for yourself, because now more than ever you need to step up. And let me tell you, through tough times, businesses survive. It's the strong ones that get stronger, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of it comes just down to your attitude, the way you're thinking, being able to be clear, calm, consistent, and be able to navigate through tough times. So that's the first thing.
Yeah.
So the next one is, okay, how do we manage our staff that are dealing with this? So what's some of the stuff that we're starting to see with staff?
What we're starting to see is and we're starting to see what I now know. I did this little bit of training a little while ago, and I was having a conversation with Phoebe about learning what protest behavior is. So what we're actually seeing now is the protest behavior, because something has triggered them. Either they're fearful, they're unsure of whether or not their job's secure, they're unsure whether or not they're going to be able to afford the kids' tuition or the mortgage payment or food on the table or a 21st birthday coming up or whatever it might be. So rather than the people being able to actually articulate what their need or fear is, we're seeing protest behavior. And that protest behavior is generally people being a little bit more snappy, a little bit more critical, a little bit more negative, could even be a bit more clingy, and really sort of honing in on particular issues and sort of making them mountains out of molehills, because that's all they've really got the ability to focus on.
Well, and also to be able to control. So there's so much stuff that's actually happening in the world and local environment at the moment that we have literally no control over. So I'm feeling tense and anxious about it. And so I'm on edge, but that co-worker of mine not meeting the deadline how we think they should for us to be able to do our work, I can let them have it, and I can really let some steam off to them, because that's something I can control, I can articulate, and I can really, it's easy to kind of fixate and focus on that. So we sort of see this sometimes it's change of behavior, sometimes it's just an overreaction.
Yeah.
Or
complete withdrawal on the other side.
Complete withdrawal, yeah. The cup just becomes fuller, doesn't it? So what would normally, we kind of get these situations all the time. Can you not just roll with it? Suddenly, no, I actually can't. I do not have the capacity to be able to roll with this.
Because we're finding that people are becoming, they're at that point of overwhelm or emotional flooding, like they just can't hold anymore. So the overflow is coming out in those behaviors where they've got no tolerance or no resilience, or they've withdrawn completely,
or they become hyper vigilant of signs in the business.
Yeah.
So
and paranoia,
I
guess, taint on that, in that it's everything. They're looking for a meaning in everything.
Yeah. So I saw my boss had a meeting at the bank. Does that mean that we're potentially in financial hardship? Completely reading into the situation. But 2 + 2 does equal 5, doesn't it?
Yeah. And we see it all the time. People imagine a story, and they build their reaction because they've imagined a story from something that I've seen. So I've imagined, and we don't know how to articulate that really, because we've got all of these just stuff happening. We don't know Arthur from Martha, what's up from down, and we start to imagine worst case scenario usually, of something that wasn't even there in the first place.
So how do we manage staff that we see reacting like that?
Look, I mean, I think it's easier to try and look at what should we be doing as an organisation first and foremost, and saying, how are we actually communicating with our team? If there is no concerns, are we actually telling our team that? Are we trying to give them reassurance? Because at the end of the day, fundamentally, people want reassurance in every element of their life, whether it's their work, personal relationships, financial security, whatever it might be. They want reassurance that it's going to be okay. So are we actually having honest conversations with our team if things are going okay? And there might be a couple of negatives. There might be these things like, oh, yeah, we have had an increase in fuel surcharges, and this is how we're combating it. And keeping them in the loop so that when they see you having a meeting with the bank manager or whatever else, or they see an increase of mail coming in from the ANZ Bank or whichever one, they're not making up their own story because they've already been given the story.
Yeah. And talking about the positives, this is challenging. However, we have got some good contracts in place, or we're still seeing we have good cash reserves at the moment, like whatever is appropriate for your business, to be able to reassure them. And it's interesting too, you might say, actually, we're government funded, we don't see any impact or changes as to what's happening. It doesn't mean that staff aren't still catastrophizing, and they're still thinking it may impact them. So just reassuring them, actually, I think we're going to be fine through this, or this is going to present some opportunities,
and reassuring where your trigger points are. This is where we're at now. This is our review cycle, and maybe even if this happens, we might have a different.
You're like Anthony Albanese with the stage 1, 2, 3, 4 with the.
Please don't ever say that. Yes, but knowing sort of business is okay, but if something happens,
we've got a plan.
Much easier for people to hear a story
then create their own.
You
can control it. I think too that if people are just overreacting or being irrational, and yes, treating them with kindness as well, hearing their story, it doesn't mean that we're enabling or allowing poor behaviour to continue, but probably shouting back at them, or isolating them, or telling them they're just being completely unreasonable, is you might just want to go take a slightly gentler touch, pull them aside. How I'm really
what's happening for you.
I'm surprised with your reaction to this, how things going. So sort of just build that relationship, rather than erode the relationship, I think is really important.
And just never make an assumption of you think that what's happening for them.
Well, I have no idea. They've got no reason. I've been paying them. This is all my problem. It's easy for them. They just get paid all the time. And the actual concern might be that their aged mother is in England, and they're really concerned whether they're going to be able to get over there later in the year. But it's just manifesting and presenting those issues in the workplace. So the next thing two that I think we need to think about is organisational change. So this is actually, what are some changes that might be starting to creep in or to plan for? So one of the big ones with this is the working from home.
And it was funny. I was talking with a client the other week, and their immediate reaction is that they'd had a request from one or however many employees to think about working from home, and their immediate reaction was, "I'm not going back there." You know, I just got out of that whole debacle of working from home from COVID because we were told we had to, and then I couldn't get them to come back in. So I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it.
Bad.
Yeah, flat out no. And sort of that not sort of being a compliant response in terms of the Fair Work Act being one thing, but also being a quite a dangerous, difficult.
Well, it's not particularly a constructive way to deal with it.
No.
Just a hard no. I think just to check off the compliance from an IR perspective, if an employee makes a request to vary their working conditions or hours or flexible working arrangements, you must respond to them in writing within 21 days. Now, I think they're meant to have been there for over 12 months, don't they? Just do it for everyone.
There's a set of criteria. Are they eligible to make a flexible work arrangement? But, this is unprecedented times. And again, I feel like COVID when we're saying this is unprecedented times. We've never been here before. The reality is that it's maybe not because of family responsibilities or anything else as to why they're making the request. It could very well be we're struggling to feed our family. And
because it's not only the fuel costs, it's the groceries going up.
It's the groceries, it's the insurance, it's all sorts of things, that are impacting. And particularly, I can't even remember the days where a family unit ran one car. Like I look at myself and my partner, he works maybe 2 kilometres down the road. Do we carpool? No, we don't. He does start very, very early, and I don't want to start that early, but that's okay. But, we just don't do that. So the costs of sort of running 2 cars, however many vehicles, particularly if you've got teenage children and you're paying for their car or contributing to those, or Uber mum and dad. So it impacts.
So I think that my blanket recommendation would be that if someone requests flexible working conditions, that I would be wanting to get back to them within 21 days.
I think it's 28. Don't quote me on that, but 21, 28. I don't know. I heard a little 28 coming up in my mind, but let's go with 21.
We'll go with 21. And letting them know, and you have to let them know in writing why they can't.
Yeah.
Why you can't. If you're not able to facilitate that. So, for example, if it's a cafe and they're serving guests, and you're like, well, you can't do that from home. That's just not going to work. So I think that's just important. If you could, like technically they could, but have they got the computer set up? Are we concerned confidentiality of the information going home? How much rights have you got? Can they force your hand to? Like, what are your thoughts?
Look, I think that's a $64,000 question. Potentially they could, if they meet the requirements for being able to apply for a flexible working arrangement. So say, for example, I lived at, I'll use your example. I'll pretend I'm you. So I live up in I live up in Port Douglas, and I'm coming down to Cairns every day for work. But I also then, have the children in school, wherever. If I could mount a case to say that, I can't afford for my children to be driving to and from their school if they're in high school, whatever, and I need to be home so that I can actually walk to pick them up because I can't afford. Potentially, there could be some grounds, but I think that there's a prime opportunity for us to look at it from a situation of how can we support our employees within reason. And if you can allow those working from home arrangements without too much drama, let's actually have a conversation about that. But let's learn from what we did from COVID, and let's start to put some requirements, monitoring, restrictions, timeframes trigger points for
We do
return?
know that some people work really well from home.
Me?
But we also know that some people don't work so well from home. They just, washing needs to be hung up, or let us have a cup of tea.
Is that wrong? I do it when I'm on the phone, though.
When you're on the phone, I know hanging it up. So I think that it could be in the situation you may want to say, look, we're happy to do it for maybe something that gets reviewed on a 4-week period or a 2-monthly period. So this is just over this period. It's not something we're looking at long term. It could be you have to provide a list of the duties or what you're going to be completing. So there could be some productivity or some transparency. So there's obviously you've got your work from home safety statement that you need to be completing that ensure they've got a safe work environment. So putting some of those things in place, I think, is really important.
I was working with a client who has decided that they are going to provide their employees with either $10 or $20 a week of like a fuel allowance. So like they were doing it for a period of 2 months. Because they were finding that particularly some of their younger apprentices, their trade people you're really struggling financially, particularly because most of them have trade utes that are sort of either diesel expensive. So they're going, okay, well, we know that it's costing you a bit more to come into work. So as they're using it as like a retention and incentive. You come to work 5 days a week, then we're going to give you $20. And they give it to them in I think this is done through their payroll, or was it done through their fuel card? I don't know, can't remember. But, you might be able to look at small investments that have a big return, provided that in any documentation you've got your trigger points for withdrawal.
Yeah. Just don't lock yourself in. And we saw that a lot over COVID with people being able to work from home, and then we had a challenge getting them back to the workplace, and that had some impact. So you want the flexibility to be able to get them back into the workplace. I think that's important. The next thing I think to have a look at is, like, we are concerned that sales are decreasing or our costs are going up, and potentially we're going to have to make some organisational changes.
But also even the shortages of products. Like I heard somebody say, and it's not gospel, I just heard it, that for at least the next 12 months, you're unlikely to be able to buy Australian bitumen.
Oh, really?
That it'll all have to be imported, because I don't know why. I just heard it. And I was like, wow. So then how does that impact road repair, new developments, building construction, building supply, and that sort of flow-on effect? So we know that it's challenging to get lots of products and the cost of getting products. So that impact of how does that actually flow on? What changes does that mean for us? I don't know.
Look, the reality is that there are some businesses that are potentially, and not businesses going through it all the time, so there just may be, and there's always some businesses that are, but we may see an increase of organisations having to look at their structure. So when you're looking at your structure, I think it is really important in the initial stage that you're looking not at the people, not at the personalities, not like, oh, I don't want her because she brings smelly egg sandwiches for lunch, so we'll get rid of her first up.
I never once bought an egg sandwich.
That one doesn't wear deodorant, we'll get rid of them.
Well, that one just turns up late for work.
Yeah, that one's late for work, or a bit bitchy, a bit quiet. So it's not about the person or their behaviours or their egg sandwiches. It is all about the roles that are going to be required for the organisation to be successful moving forward with it. And it's like, what are the roles and how many hours is required in those roles as well? So maybe we still need this job, but it's not going to be a 38-hour job anymore. It's probably going to be transitioning into a 25-hour. Or, this role has always had overtime. These guys have always got extra hours. We are going to be able to continue to employ them, but we need to have a communication strategy to let them know that there's not going to be any overtime in the foreseeable future, or any overtime needs to be pre-approved before we're going to be able to implement it. And that's just a really calm and rational, not, oh my gosh, the rain is falling and I'm doing this to save your bacon because we're all going to, everything's falling apart. It's not that kind of catastrophizing it. It's just, I'm making some really good decisions so that we're going to be able to be sustainable moving forward.
Yeah. And I think the biggest key, or the biggest, I guess, point that I can make for employers that are going to need to do some restructuring, particularly in such a volatile time, because what we do know is that people won't like your decision, regardless of how good your process was and how valid your decision-making process was to get there. People won't like it, and it is likely to be challenged through some form of jurisdiction, in some form of claim. So particularly with redundancies, when you start a redundancy type process or a restructure type process, like the structure of the organization is going to change. We don't really know what it may look like, or we may have an idea of what it might look like. And it could result in changes to status of employment, full-time, part-time, casual, or roles being made redundant. Is when you're doing your consultation, be mindful of who you're doing your consultation with. So if you've already pinpointed...
Can I not just do the consultation with the egg sandwich person?
No, you cannot, because that will then result in egg sandwich person being quite upset, usually, not because of the message, but because they feel that they've been treated differently and targeted. So when that person lodges a claim, you then have to defend why your consultation was targeted to one individual. And the key word is optics. You need to be aware of the optics.
Yeah. And that the process was really transparent. So, and I think I understand why it's hard for employers to get their head around this, because they're like, but I know I want to get rid of Susie because of her egg sandwiches and her productivity, and she was the last person on, and a whole heap of reasons. It's going to be easiest to replace it. Why do I have to do a consultation with Susie and Joe and Jane and Mike and make all of those other staff members feel nervous or insecure about their roles, where I have absolutely no intention of getting rid of them? So it kind of, I get where you're coming from, but from a procedural fairness, if they're all holding the same or similar type of position, how can you choose that Susie has not been targeted if you don't do a consultation with all the staff and give them an opportunity to provide feedback before you're making the decision? So, and I guess this, just taking a step back, redundancy is actually a reasonably, and restructures are a reasonably simple process, but you need to ensure that you are procedurally fair in it.
That's right.
You have to go through, you have to do a consultation, you have to get feedback from staff, you have to look at redeployment opportunities for them. So you have to offer support people for when you're having those meetings with them. So there's sort of, you've got to go through the steps. So what we see is restructures or redundancies or changing of working conditions. They're actually very valid and good reasons from a business perspective as to why they're being done. Because why would we change it otherwise?
And why potentially would we be paying redundancy pay if we didn't have to?
Yeah, exactly. Or just causing that instability among the team. What we're seeing more is that you just don't go through the process properly. As that's not, you're not meeting procedural fairness with it. So if you're, I would really recommend that you just check and double check that you're jumping through those hoops before you go into any conversations with staff, because you can't sort of go and say, I think I'm going to make your position redundant, and then give us a call and it's like, oh, well, the horse is bolted.
Yeah, let me try and shut that gate for you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're coming out the gate. Like, before we even approach the gate, get some advice so that we can make sure your ducks are in a row with it.
And I think when we were talking before about communication with your workplace, even though things are okay and you're not looking at a restructure or any changes to your hierarchy, being able to actually have structured conversations and those check-in points, then actually when things may need to change and you may need to be making some changes down the track, like right now it's good, but if things keep going the way that they are, in 6 months' time we could be having a different conversation. But if you've got those communication channels and you've kept them up to date, I guess, with when things have changed and where some pressures start to we get a few friction points, that all actually leads into your consultation process. And it's about that consistent messaging. You've been giving that same messaging to everybody. So then when you start to do your consultation, it's not coming as a surprise.
I remember, right back in the global financial crisis.
Oh, the GFC.
Yeah, GFC.
Not
right,
the KFC, the GFC.
The GFC, right when we first set up the business, we were working for an organisation and they were looking at making some roles redundant. And we went through the consultation, and all this, a number of staff said, well, actually, I'm full-time at the moment, but I'd be really happy to drop back 1 day or 2 days. And so then we went out to the staff and said, hey, if everyone's prepared to pull back, then we may not have to make redundancies. And there was someone who was like, I really can't. And the staff were great, actually. They were like, that's okay. We don't mind if she gets the full-time hours, because we understand, single parent, and they've got, financial obligations, but I'm happy to go back to actually 3 days. I don't even need the 4, because, and I'd actually quite enjoy some time in the garden. So, and the employer was super surprised. They really had thought that they were going to have to get rid of headcount. We didn't have to. The GFC impact, interestingly, wasn't as big an impact as what they had projected it. They were just being really proactive with it. It didn't impact them as hard and as long as they had expected, and we were able to revert back into their previous roles beforehand. And if anything, it actually pulled the business together even more. Like, everyone communicated and worked really well together. So that's important. The other thing that I really wanted to talk to you about and through this time is, it's really easy to get narky and talk about personalities, but I think it's really important at these times to think about productivity, to think about customer service. What are we doing to build the business and our reputation, and being as efficient as possible, and letting staff know what is required for them to be, high performing and efficient, and customer service, and leading from the front with it. Because sometimes it's really easy to focus on all the negative narky stuff, rather than focus on some of those other opportunities to improve sales, or to get better results from your staff as well. Like, if everyone just, you could, set targets for the team, if we can just lift sales by this much, or we can reduce some costs by this much, it's going to get us through this time. And we actually find, when you go through some of these tough economic times, your business model actually comes out much stronger and more robust and streamlined than what it had beforehand. You're like, oh gosh, I can't believe we went around with so much fat. We didn't realize it at the time. But when we were forced to pull our belt in and work a bit harder and be more productive, we actually were able to perform better, if anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you're holding on to learnings from past environments where there has been challenges and hard times, and which has changed the way in which we do things, I think. So, yeah, holding on to the learnings, and also maybe even asking your team, how can we be better? You don't have to have all the ideas. You don't have to have, the be all and end all of everything. Try to giving people some ownership and accountability, so that they can come to the table with some ideas about how things can be made better or streamlined.
The other thing,
more heads better than one sometimes.
The other thing we are starting to see is that, there's natural attrition. That's the right word?
Yes,
attrition,
not natural selection.
Not natural selection. Natural attrition from businesses. So you use that as an opportunity to really think about your restructure moving forward. And classification, the role. It also, and I hate to say it, but it may be worthwhile considering, does this role need to be casual? We've had a lot of clients saying that they're wanting to move into a more casual workforce, so they've got more flexibility. My challenge with the IR system, one of the big ones I have, is that the part-time just does not provide us with the flexibility to be able to react to business conditions, because you've got to have those contracts with set days and hours. And I know that by agreement you can change those, but it does really rope us in a lot more as to what we provide. So if you're not giving them the 38 hours, sometimes casual, or having the ability to be casual, can be a option to look at. Please be very wary of moving to a contractor model. Is it a true contractor? I had someone the other day saying, oh yeah, I'm a bit nervous as to what's happening, so I'm just engaging contractors. Are they actually, do they pass the contractor test? And that's not a simple yes no answer. You really need to go through and have a look at it to make sure that they meet the requirement, what the basis of the requirement is for that. Obviously something that we're happy to have a chat to you about.
Can I make a comment about the casual thing?
Go.
Obviously, where there's a requirement for an organisation to look at a more casualised workforce, that's great. That it's legitimate. That's awesome. But as an employer, you have to respect the fact that if you're paying them as a casual, they can act like a casual. So if they call up and say, "Oh no, look, I'm going away for 2 weeks," or "I've got some more work with Bob over there for 2 weeks. I'm not available for the next 2 weeks," you don't get to get cranky about it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want the flexibility, you have to accept the flexibility.
Mm-hmm. So just with that casual too, so you pay the 25% loading for the casual.
Yep.
But you don't have to pay the annual leave and sick leave. So it's about a 10%, and I'm just back of an envelope figures here. So it's about a 10% saving that you do get with casual, but you also do get to change the hours about with a casual staff member.
Yeah.
So look, I hope, any other points that you wanted to bring up?
No, just, be
communication, be positive,
be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Ask for help. Like I said, you don't have to have all of the answers. You don't have to shoulder everything. It's not about what you know, it's about who you know that can help you do it.
Yeah, do a litmus test for yourself. I think that's really important. The team will certainly draw from how you're surviving and how you're getting through this. And we will see good businesses that have got no reason to fail through these times. And we will see businesses that I don't know how they survived, but they had a good attitude and they pulled together and they actually survived. So, be one of those surviving businesses. I think that's really important. Oh, we've got Q&A. What about the new requirements for conversions to casual? How would that impact the strategy suggested? Good question.
Well, you've obviously, with the Fair Work Act and the National Employment Standards, it was implemented last year or even the year before. I've lost track of years now with all the legislation changes. The employer choice framework, which still means that you can have
employee choice.
That's it. Yeah. Where they can elect to convert to full-time. Yeah. Well, they can. It's more of an elect, really. Unless you can actually reasonably demonstrate that they do not fit the framework for casual, in that there's no regular and systematic approach, no firm advance commitment, no longevity in the hours that they have been doing going forward, because it might have been that it was for a fixed project, etc. So if you're thinking about moving into a casualized strategy, for now, you still need to be mindful of the employee choice pathway.
Yeah. So some employers still think that they have to offer a conversion after either 6 or 12 months. You don't have to offer. However, you need to really communicate to your casual staff the pathway and what their rights are. There's a casual information statement, so they know their rights, that after 12 months they can elect to be able to convert.
It can be 6 months in some awards.
Oh, is it 6 months in some awards?
Some.
Yeah, so, but it is also important to remember that if they do elect to convert to permanent, that means that they will lose their casual loading.
Yeah.
To be honest, we see it very rarely.
Yeah.
Very rarely do we have staff wanting to move from. In fact, I would see more employers that are wanting their casuals to move to permanent than I'd see employees that have got regular and consistent hours that are wanting to move across. The only time that I see that happening is when there's a performance management action and they're suddenly wanting to secure up their job.
Maybe.
Or they see there's going to be some instability in some hours or something moving forward. But
as an employer, you do have an obligation to assess whether the role is casual before you offer it.
Yeah, right from the start.
So if you know that, yes, we want to go casual, like I have some very close people, I won't say who they are, that have been working 45 hours a week as a casual for the last 3 years. That's just not okay. But that's how they've done it, and it's.
I'm going to even talk to Steve, my husband. He's casual.
Yeah.
He has worked regular and consistent, but his start time, his finish time, some weeks he does a bit more, some weeks he does less with it. And I do think that if he went to his employer and said, oh, I want to convert to permanent, they probably need to look at some sort of arrangement. But it is tricky because it depends upon what work orders they have coming through as to how many shifts and hours they do give to them. Like, it's not a set.
I will maintain my argument that I've always said that the Fair Work Act needs to have a fourth category of employment, and that is a flexi part-time.
Yeah.
Where you might pay a 10% loading. I'm just making this up now. I should run for politics.
They actually did talk about it at one stage.
Where you pay a small loading, but you get the ability to fluctuate the hours.
Yeah.
So be mindful, if you're going to offer casual employment, make sure the role's casual. Be mindful of your casual conversion or employee choice pathways before you move to a casualised workforce.
So as an employer, so you can say this role is going to be regular and consistent part-time. However, I'm happy to also give you the option of taking casual if you would like. So you can put the casual option on there. You just have to also say you could take it as part-time.
Yeah, you can give the employee the choice, but have some documentation.
Have some documentation that you do. Yeah. Excellent. Well, look, I think that wraps it up.
45 minutes. Look at us. We're on time.
So may the force be with you. We appreciate that this is an interesting time. Yeah. Hopefully, things do calm down and we get back to normal. I don't know what normal is, but be prepared. Look after yourself. Good communication. Have a plan in place. And if anyone needs any assistance, please don't hesitate to contact us.
Yeah. Here if you need us.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, everybody.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.